Okay, so welcome everyone. I'm so pleased that you could join us for part two. We have the slides and the recordings for part one on our website, and Laurie
in the chat.
just put the URL in the chat. So if you missed part one, it's available there. So I want to welcome Nalini for another rousing introduction to Google or advanced class on Google Analytics. So welcome, Nalini, and take it away.
All right, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Nice to see some faces again from last week. For those of you who were here last week and those of you who are new, my promise is I'm going to hurt all your heads. It gets a little confusing. Here is what I will tell everybody. Take it from where you are. There's so many analytics. There's so many pieces to Google Analytics. Take the pieces that you understand and then build on those. Some people are going to resonate with some parts and other people will not. I'm happy to take as many questions as I can within the time. I tend to leave all the questions to the end, but if it's something super important, David or Lori, if you guys catch it and want to interrupt me to take the question at that moment, I can. I know this particular session may generate a lot of questions. What I will preface this by saying is I'm going to focus primarily on Google Analytics 4 today, simply because in another month or two, you will have the old analytics as far as we know, but you're really going to be focusing on the new Google Analytics, and we can do the old analytics separately. It's just the reports are different, so we have to cover them differently. So I'm going to jump right in. I'm going to do a quick recap for those of you who may not have made it last week, and then a refresher for those who were here, and then we'll jump right into it. So let me share my screen. So want to confirm everybody can see that okay? All right, I see nods. All right.
Yes.
All right, so today we're going to talk about understanding the new Google Analytics 4's capabilities and the enhanced tracking that it does. I'm going to go over some of the reports and dashboards. It's just not enough time to go over everything. And these are going to be the pre-built reports and dashboards. There are some custom reports you can set up, and that's like, we'll call that advanced Google Analytics. And a lot of people don't necessarily need that level. You can get lost in the reports and then completely miss what it's trying to tell you. And then I'm really going to show you how to understand these reports and how they help you measure the effectiveness of your website, because that's essentially what Google Analytics is really for. So let's really talk about, just right at the top of the house, what is Google Analytics? So first and foremost, it is a free tool from Google that helps you track and analyze website traffic. These are read-only reports, so all you're doing is seeing and measuring. It's a measurement. Then we're going to look at how to understand how visitors are interacting with your website, so you can either improve the performance and engagement or leave it alone. Essentially, we build these websites, they sit there, and we assume users are using it the way we want them to use them. The reality is users are going to use them however they feel like, and sometimes it just doesn't, it baffles the mind where people go. It's really interesting when you get into some of the customer journeys, and it helps you understand, for example, if people are coming to your site and they're trying to get to the donate button because you are nonprofits, they want to know what your donation options are, and it's buried somewhere, you may see the traffic drop off and you never get to the donations. Or you may see that they stop at the donation page. Maybe you have 100 users on your donation page, but then you don't see 100 donations in response. So then you have to analyze, is it a messaging issue? Did the page not load? There's a couple of factors that can go into that, and I can help you understand what that is. And it's also going to help you essentially measure the success of your other marketing efforts. You have newsletters, you have social media, you have email campaigns that go out too, and the Google Analytics will help you track based on timing when certain things go out. Now, if you sent out everything at once, then it might get a little muddled, but if you happen to send them out separately, you can then see where they're coming from. So here are some broad strokes understanding around what is Google Analytics for. Universal Analytics, which is the traditional Google Analytics we're familiar with, which looks like, not this screen, this is the new Google Analytics screen, but it looks different than this for those of you familiar, is sunsetting in July. And it's sunsetting so that you can have two reasons. One is which Google Analytics was developed more than 10 years ago, and the way people use the internet and use websites have changed. And so they're trying to give us more detailed and informed reports versus trying to kind of decipher what's there. They're trying to help us have a better understanding, because they know that there's not a lot of techies all the time that can interpret these reports. The other issue is more with compliance with data protection regulations. Google has paid hefty fines in the last couple of years for data privacy concerns in the UK and the EU and other regions of the world that have very strictly enforced data analytics and data privacy rules, and Google went and violated all of that. So what does that mean for us? That means that some of our reports are more anonymized than they used to be. It had to create a new way of analyzing the data that complied with the rules. So to some degree, we're going to see these reports be more annoying because they're going to have less of the details we were used to seeing than we can see now. What they did try to do was give us some new features to kind of offset that. So some of this includes using machine learning and AI-powered insights. This is the level of what I would like to call advanced Google Analytics that we're not going to be able to get into today. I'm going to focus on helping you understand the reports and how you can read them. And then when you look at the AI, it kind of tells you as is, they'll give you specific pre-filled questions. And I'll show you that at the end. We do have a little bit more flexible, what they're calling event tracking. Now, this might also get into the advanced level where you might need to understand how to set that up. It might not be set up already for you. And so now we're going to figure out how to get to Google Analytics. I know I'm going a little fast, but I'm going to slow down now. I just wanted to get through the kind of recap so that we can get into the meat and bones of everything. So one of the questions that came out of last week was, how do I even get to Google Analytics? And so you get there by going to analytics.google.com. When you go to analytics.google.com, you may see this screen. You may not see this screen. I know what came out of last week's class was one of the folks on the call realized that they had access, they were in the wrong account, or maybe they didn't have access at all. So the first thing you do, you go to analytics.google.com, then you figure out, can you see anything? And is this where you need to be? The next thing you're going to do is in the upper right corner, whether you're using a Chrome browser or you're using Safari or whatever browser, you may have this option of switching between users. Many of us have more than one Google account. So you might have an account for your personal use. You have an account for your nonprofit. Maybe you have another business or another personal email for whatever reason. By default, this screen will bring you to whatever the default setting is for your Chrome browser or your Gmail setup on your computer. In my case, mine always defaults to my personal account, and I have to switch it to my business account. And I do this by clicking on this case. It has my logo because I filled that in. You may see an initial for your name. You may see your photo. It depends on just how your specific settings are set up, but this is where you want to go and you want to pick the account you need to be in. This is very, very important, and I'll cover that in a little bit, but access is granted at a user level. That means that it is given specifically to an email address. So if you have 3 email addresses and access was given to, let's say in this, for argument's sake, access was given to my Ngul account. If I'm logged into info@EdgeSpace Marketing, I will not see what my Ngul Gmail account sees and vice versa. So that's why this is important to know how to make that navigation. So let's say now you switched over to your accounts. You're still not seeing what you're supposed to see. You may need to check here. If you have Google Analytics set up on more than one account, let me say that differently. If you were granted access to Google Analytics for more than one account, you may now need to switch between the accounts. In my case, here's me and mine looks chaotic and crazy. Yours may not have all of this. There's an analytics account, and you can see there's other groups that I've been granted access to. And then in the middle where it says properties and apps, those are the different accounts tied to the Google Analytics account I'm in. I know that might be slightly confusing, so let me recap a little bit and try to clear that up. There is user-based access, which is you personally, your email, which is what we do on the right side. And then there's account-based access, which is the property itself. So your user, every Gmail user has access to Google Analytics. Switch between the accounts. Then you need to look at your properties and see which property you were granted access to. If you set up the Google Analytics yourself, it's also important to check that first box on the right side to make sure you have it set up. I can tell you when I'm building websites, it's very often that I accidentally set up the account in the wrong, the property in the wrong account. And then I have to go do the setup all over again and move it from my personal account to my business account. So if you are the person setting it up, just pay a little attention to this step, or just make note of which email it is, because then you yourself will have to figure out, where did I put my access, right? So here are some common access issues. If you've done now those steps, you've logged in, you're logged into your Gmail, you don't see it, you switch between accounts, you don't see it, you check the properties, you don't see it, figure out who last had access, ask them to confirm that they granted you access and also confirm what email they use. Maybe they gave it to the wrong email. Maybe you're not logged into that email. These are a couple of ways to kind of figure it out. And if you can log into the email you need to that they granted the access to, try it again. Now, in the past, and I don't know if they've changed this, is that if you have an iCloud email or an Outlook email, it doesn't work. It does need to be a Gmail. My info@EdgeSpace Marketing email is a G Suite business email, so it functions like a Gmail, so I can get in. I purposely set up my business that way, knowing I would need my access. So I have clients that have Outlook emails or iCloud emails. Every now and then they'll have like a moment where they're like, I need access. Then I need to figure out what their Gmail is. They give that to me and I give them the access. So if you're having issues getting access to the Google Analytics, these are some of the places to start. Now, if you're in a situation where you neither know who set it up, we can't figure out where it is, your best option is to just set up a brand new analytics and then grant access to whoever's supposed to get access to it. It's not ideal. And sometimes you do get that historical data if there was another property already set up and it was monitoring. And other times you may just be starting from scratch, which in this case, you have no access at all. So it's par for the course in my mind. So those are kind of how you address your access issues and kind of decipher it. So let's get into the fun stuff, the reports and metrics. So first things to look at is I am going to give you a little brief overview of the Universal Analytics metrics since we are on it for 2 more months, and then you may want to historically look at it. I will say again that the reports are apples and oranges. So they're similar, but they're completely different. When you're looking at the Universal Analytics, so this is a traditional Google Analytics, you're looking at sessions, which is the number of overall visits to your website, and the bounce rate. So going back to sessions, your sessions is essentially, in this report, we have 149 users, generated 177 sessions. That means 1 or more users came back more than once. And we like that. We like when we have repeat traffic because people coming back to your website means they're interested. It means they're engaged for some reason. There's a reason they came back. And we want to continue to have that. The more you see sessions more than users, it's a good thing. I could easily have 149 users generated 149 sessions, which means everybody came one time and never came back again. Returning users are good for 2 reasons. One, it means they're engaged. The second part is it's giving Google cues that your website has interesting content that users that fit whatever their demographic metrics are may also want to see that content. So for those of you familiar with search engine optimization, it means that users who share the same profile of users who are already coming to your website may now see you in their results, depending on all the other ranking factors for your search engine optimization. Now that can get a little tricky, so don't worry about that if that didn't make any sense to you. What you're really looking at is how many users came, how many return, and then the bounce rate. In this report, the bounce rate is telling you how often somebody comes to your website and leaves without interacting with any other page or elements. So for businesses that have or nonprofits that have what's called a one-page website, meaning it's a constant scroll down to each section, like you jump down to About Us, you jump down to Programs, you jump down to Donate, you may see your bounce rate as high as 100% because there's no other place for them to go. So they're going to be contained. So your results may be skewed. It doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It just doesn't give you any deeper insights into what people are actually doing. The new G4 analytics solves for that, so you don't have to worry. But what I'm saying is that your reports may not be as detailed as you're looking for, giving you the insights if you have a one-page website and you're only using the Universal Analytics. Now, what does a bounce rate actually mean? Think of a bouncing ball. When a ball lands on a surface, it leaves immediately. It bounced. And bounce is essentially a technical term for rebooting something or they came and they left. So that's one way to just kind of think about what bounce rate means. I saw a hand up. Let me see if there's a question.
Yeah, Howard is asking, is there a way to exclude the sessions of our team who are maintaining the website or specific page?
Not that I know of. And this goes back to the data privacy. In order to do that, you would have to know the IP addresses of those folks, and we're technically not supposed to know those things. It might be possible in the new G4 when you go to set that up. Maybe you have to take out the returning users, or maybe you have to set up a custom event count to see what you want. So we'll put that in the advanced Google. And Howard, maybe we talk offline to see if we can help you figure that part out. All right.
Thank
So
you.
you're welcome. So the next one is session duration. In the Universal Analytics, it's telling us how long somebody's spending on your site. That means the whole time. That means that they clicked the link, the website loaded, and maybe they went off to do something else, and the page is sitting open. They're not actually doing anything, but the website is open. So you have what's called a session duration. That's how long from the time they clicked on your website to the time they closed the window, that session. So if you're like me and have a million tabs and then accidentally close half the tabs without meaning to, it kind of skews the numbers, because I could open a website and then it's open for hours because I mean to come back to it, and then I accidentally closed it. Then I'm going to open it again to do what I need to. So that can skew your results. In the new G4 analytics, we're going to get a little more detailed than that, so you can have some better insights around, are people actually leaving the window open, or are they actually doing stuff? All right, conversion rate. If you have an e-commerce website, you may see something called conversion rate, which means that they bought something, or they went all the way through the checkout process. That's usually only available if you have an e-commerce website and if you have it linked to your Google Shopping. There's a little nuance to that, so it can get a little tricky. Not everybody has that set up, and I don't think it's that big of a deal, particularly because if you have an e-commerce website, you're going to get your e-commerce reports directly from them in terms of conversions. So I would say focus your Google Analytics on understanding the traffic coming to your website, and then maybe match that up against your sales reports, and then you can say, okay, where's the gaps in that? Trying to do it through Google can create a little complexity if you're not too familiar with how to do that setup. And then we also have traffic sources. Now, this one is going to get interesting when we get into the G4 analytics. We have a little slightly different breakdown in how that works. What this is telling us is where the users are coming from. It is commonly termed the acquisition report, meaning how did you acquire this user? They came directly, meaning they typed in your domain name, your website name in the browser. So in this case, it could be the Cultural Alliance of Fairfieldcounty.com. That's one way, and they went directly there. That's called direct. It's also like if they clicked their bookmark for the website and it went there directly. They didn't go anywhere else before that. On organic search means they could have gone to Google and typed in Cultural Alliance of Fairfield County, because people like me, I'm lazy. I don't want to type it in the browser. I always mess up the spelling, reverse letters. If I go to Google and just type in Cultural Alliance of Fairfield County, Google's going to catch my typo. And ideally, it should feed me the website I want to go to as the first search result. That's called a navigational search. So if you're familiar with search, there's 4 different kinds of searches. Navigational search is very, very common, and often your organic search could be a result of that. You also have referral and social and other. This is where it gets slightly tricky. Referral could be from social. It depends on the user's privacy settings. Referrals can also be from your email campaigns that you're sending out. Referrals come from other websites. And this is where the other comes in, because in terms of people's privacy settings, technically social media users can end up in any one of those 3. Referral users, meaning your email, could either end up in referral or other. Sometimes it could be as simple as somebody texted a link to someone else who clicked it, and instead of it coming in as direct because of their privacy settings and anonymization, it ends up in the other or referral box. So just bear in mind that this report doesn't quite help you figure that detail out. When you do click through it in the Universal Analytics, you can get a little more granular in terms of what website they actually came from for the social, referral, other. Even the organic search gives you slightly more detailed reports. This report is also showing you on the Universal Analytics, your page views. It's important to know where users are going when they come to your website. In my case, I'm looking at this report and I'm going, all right, so they're coming, the slash just means your homepage. So that is actually a good thing. I have 32 users in the last 7 days came to my homepage. 7 of them went to contact us. 3 of them went to digital marketing. 3 of them went to the portfolio. Now, what I find really interesting is that 1 person went to the blog. I know who that 1 person is, me. I was checking what the blog actually said so that I can actually figure out what I need to write when last I wrote. So to Howard's question earlier, this did not remove me. I know for a fact that was me, because I went there just the other day to see what was on there as an example. So for using this report to infer details. So for example, people come to my homepage. This doesn't tell me which of these pages they went to next. They're just saying for the entire time they visited your website, this is where they ended up. Now, of those 32 page views, 7 of those people could be 3 people that went services, contact us, services, contact us, right? So again, not really helping you figure out true numbers. These are just top of the house broad strokes. So this is where the G4 is supposed to be helping us. Now that's still to be seen how well it's going to help us infer this anymore, but just telling you that these numbers aren't straight through numbers, meaning I did not necessarily mean I had 7 unique people go to the contact us page. It could have even been one person that kept going to one of these other pages and then thinking that they want to contact me and then going back somewhere else and then coming back to contact us. That could happen. So then we are going to get into the Google for Analytics and figure out what does that mean. Here are some metrics. I'm going to bring them all up if you want to either screen grab this. I know we're going to share the slides and the recording later. The reason this is important is because these are the major metrics we're going to focus on for the next set of reports. Essentially, these are what's helpful is some of these metrics, the name is the same. You're just going to see it in a different context. So I'm kind of giving you them all now. And then the next set of screenshots or literal pages are going to be just screenshots pointing you to where to look at them. So one really important metric is the event count. So if you remember in the Universal Analytics report, we had a bounce rate, meaning they came and left. Then we also had the average duration for the session, meaning they spent a total of 1 minute on my website. Now we have something called event counts. This is where they're actually paying attention to, did the user interact with your website? Did they scroll? Did they click any buttons? Did they view your videos and did they fill out your forms? These are the basic event counts that Google has set up by default. There may be more that you may want to set up later, whether it's playing through a gallery and stuff, but these are the basics. And going back to what I said earlier is those who have a single page website now have insights of terms of whether or not somebody actually scrolled down the page. Whereas the bounce rate before just told us they came and they left in less than a minute and they didn't click anything else. But that doesn't mean anything. That could mean that they just scrolled down to the bottom of the page, found the contact information they were looking for, and they left. Maybe they were looking for your hours and it's right on your homepage, but they probably had to scroll to get there. So now we're getting a better sense of what is happening on your website. We have the average engagement time. There's 2 metrics you're going to see in the reports. There is a percentage of time where they're kind of breaking it down per user, which I don't find that helpful. But then there's also a general, they'll tell you 20 seconds on your homepage is the average time. I'll tell you this, when you're looking at your reports, anything more than 7 seconds is a good thing. In the new digital age that we live in, people's attention span is a total of 8 seconds right now, and it's reducing day by day because of social media and instant gratification. You click a button and you wait for that website to load. So your clock already started. Somebody went to Google, they typed in EdgeSpace Marketing. They hit EdgeSpace Marketing. The clock has started. 1 second, 2 second, the page loads. 3 second, they scroll down. 4 second, it didn't finish loading. They got fed up, they left. That's the nuance we're looking for. Did they stick around more than 10 seconds? And if they did they even scroll down or did they just get fed up because the page didn't finish loading? One of the key SEO ranking factors is timing. How long does your website take to load? Does the page take too long? I do it myself. I'm on demos. I click a button and I'm wiggling the mouse because I'm like, come on, hurry up page. I don't have 5 more seconds to wait. As if 5 seconds is an eternity. Think about that. When the next time you click a button for any website, your own website, count how long before you lose patience. It's probably around 3 seconds. It sounds crazy, but it feels like an eternity. We're also going to look at user acquisition. So we still get to know where they're coming from. We do get to see their engagement rate. So this is kind of taking that same average engagement time and giving you a percentage. If you're somebody who understands the percentages and resonate with that, run with it. I'm a person, the average engagement time makes more sense to me than the percentage, but I'm sure there's lots of people that the percentage makes more sense to them than the time. There's a conversion rate. Now, this one you might have to set up as it's not a default. That's where people are making purchases or filling out your forms. When you look at all of my reports, there's no conversions. I don't have conversions set up. To me, that's by design. In my world, a conversion is my phone rang or I got an email or somebody sent me a message through social media. That's a conversion to me. No matter how many times they click a button and fill out the form, doesn't really affect my business unless I get a phone call or an email for somebody who wants to become a client. So I don't care about the conversions. You may have a different reason for wanting to know how many times people filled out that form, how many times people purchased something. If you're looking to make a little bit more informed decisions, that's a metric you need. And then the other thing is, in general, it's user behavior. What are their page interactions looking like? What pages are they spending time on, and how long are they spending on those pages? That's really what we're really looking for in all of these reports. You may or may not see user behavior as a metric anywhere. Maybe you see it in the pre-built reports. Maybe you see it in the insights. One of the things I will say when I get into the screenshots, if your screenshots do not look the same as mine, do not be alarmed. Part of this whole AI machine learning is Google is giving everybody different reports. The layout looks slightly different. Google is looking at what do you look at the most and kind of feeding you. So they're almost treating your analytics like SEO because they're trying to make it easy for you to get to what you want. So that's my caveat as we go into these actual reports. So let's look at the reports at a snapshot. So once you're logged in and you have everything you need, on the left side of your screen, it should be the second icon under the home icon, which says reports. Now I put an arrow there to show it to you. I have been inside other people's Google Analytics and it is not the second icon. It might be the third icon because something else is there. I've been inside others where I've seen 6 buttons on that left side instead of 4. So I'm just showing you what it looks like. It looks like a little bar graph and it's called report snapshot when you get in here. Now, there's lots of things on the left side next to that says real-time, life cycle, users. We're not going to get into much of those. I'm going to focus on the main reports that they show you in the snapshot because that gives you a lot of information right there. So what we're looking at is, first things first, is check your date range. In this new report, the date range is at the top on the right side. In the Universal Analytics, you could change date range per report right in the snapshot. Google is now making it consistent. So you're not, you're looking at one report that it was a 7-day, and the next thing you're actually accidentally looking at a 30-day report, and you're trying to figure out why your numbers don't tick and tie. So they've tried to make it a little easier. So it's 1 date per page. So in this case, this is a 28-day report. And what we're seeing here is we've got users, new users, and average engagement time. Now, one of the things I want to show you here is, also where you see the little 2 and the $sign, it says conversions, but I have to shrink my window so I can get the screenshot properly for you all. And so it said the $sign, it literally says 0. So I cut it out so you don't need it. In your case, if you have your conversion set up, as I mentioned earlier, you may see it. Now, here's what's interesting about this new report to the old one. In the last 28 days, I had 180 users come to the website. 177 of them are new according to Google. So this is kind of a reverse about how the previous reports were, where we had sessions instead. So they reversed it and they said, overall, if you want to say apples to apples, users would have been my sessions in my old report, and the new users are new users, 177 of them. So this means only 3 people came back to my website, or 1 person came back 3 times in the last 28 days. And that's fine. But notice that the average engagement time is 21 seconds. I'm not mad at that. That's more than 7 seconds. And so that means that they've gone through the website and they've either decided I'm not the one for them, or they've already made the phone call, or they've already filled out the contact form. We can see that a little further in the rest of the details, but this is giving me a sense of how long they're spending. If you see an average engagement time of 0 or 1 or 2 seconds, again, anything under 7 seconds, first thing I'm going to look at is your page speed. Second thing you want to look at is your design. Is it antiquated and outdated? And maybe you're looking at another report that tells you they're mostly coming from mobile. And if they are, is your website not mobilely responsive? There's a few different things to infer if your average engagement time is 7 seconds or less. And to Howard's question earlier, in the box to the right there, you see it says users in the last 30 minutes. That was me on my website checking something. So I know that's me. Now I could probably dig a little further and maybe it's someone else, but I've actually gone into my website and watched the number count go up. So we know it's tracking me real time. I am both an admin in the website and an admin on the Google Analytics, and I am showing up in the reports. So as I said, I personally don't know how to eliminate myself from that list. And so there might be some more advanced reporting to figure that out. So let's talk about user acquisitions. What I did was take that same snapshot page where we're looking at and breaking it down into the reports that you get. You may see them in a different order. I have grabbed them as I saw them in my panel, but I know I've seen in other people's panels, they look slightly different. So here is my user acquisition report where it's saying, where did they come from? And so what you're going to do is check your date range just to make sure that, you know, you're looking at the time frame you actually want to look at, or at least you have a sense of what time frame you're looking at. Then you're going to go down and click on view user acquisition. This is going to give you a little bit more insight about where they're coming from. The screen will change and this is what you're going to see. Now, essentially, this is all almost pretty much the same information laid out differently. They've got a line graph for those people who prefer and understand line graphs, and then they have a bar graph. The line graph and the bar graph are the same numbers laid out differently. Because a lot of times I do get people that are confused saying, well, what's the difference? There is none. Your bar graph and your line graph are essentially the same. They're just laid out differently. What you're really looking for is this information on the bottom. You can see that it's grouped by direct, organic, referral, and then organic social. It's interesting that when you get into these reports, it now says organic social. I don't know what the difference is between organic social and if they're actually tracking paid social, meaning they're coming from ads. That's the implication here. I don't run ads, so I couldn't tell you if that will change if I ran an ad and if it'll actually track it. So just keep that in mind. If you see something that says paid social, then you know it must come from an ad campaign. And then if you see organic, it's coming naturally. Again, I don't run ads, so I can't confirm that. What I am seeing here is I have new users. Let's look at the top of the house numbers. 177 new users in the last 28 days. And 66% of them were engaged. Now, you may think, oh my goodness, that's a bad thing. Not necessarily. It could be that somebody came to my website and all they were looking for is to confirm that I exist. My marketing by design is set up that way. I am not looking for people to find me on Google to solicit business. I'm looking for more of qualified reviews. So my business is 99% referral based, but that means I'm going to have a higher bounce rate and I'm going to see numbers skew like this because people are really coming to my website to first confirm that I exist and maybe to get my contact details, which are front and center. I designed my marketing that way and my numbers line up with that. If you did not design your marketing that way and you're expecting people to find you on Google and expecting people to do a little more engagement with your website, you may want to pay attention to this metric and figure out what's happening. Moving over to the right side, I've skipped the parts in the middle because those are the percentage based. And if we look at engagement rate, 32% is okay. That's just basically 177 divided by 66. I resonate better with the 66. So I'm going to run with that versus the percentage, right? So this is where I talked about before. If the percentage makes more sense, you use that metric. And then you have engaged sessions per user. 0.37 is meaningless to me. I don't know what that actually means. So that's why I don't worry too much about that particular metrics. I'm focused on average engagement time and event count. Look at the difference in the numbers now. When I'm looking at my average engagement time, 21 seconds. So 177 users are spending an average of 21 seconds on my website. Now you could look at this even further and say, okay, wait a minute, not 177, 66 users, because we know that how many times they were engaged. So let's go back to it. 66 users spent an average of 21 seconds on my website, okay? And they generated 811 event counts. Now, if you remember what your event count is, scrolling, clicking buttons, filling out forms, playing videos. So I got 21 seconds, but I have 800 event counts. That means that they are very engaged on my website. They're doing things, they're scrolling, they're looking. But if you really put that into context, let's start with, I don't have the videos on my website are on the portfolio page, not the portfolio page, they're on the webinar page. When I show you that report, you'll see the webinar page is not actually showing up as one of the big clickers, and that's fine. But what I'm saying is that, so that means they're not playing the videos. Okay, so they're not watching video replays. That means they're probably scrolling, or they are clicking other buttons like contact us, or clicking around the website. But 811 is a damn good engagement count for 21 seconds, whereas before I might have gotten 21 second and a 70% bounce rate. See the difference of the informed data that helps us figure out what's happening. I can take this a little further and say, okay, people coming from Google are spending less time than people that are coming from wherever the referral source is. Excuse me, I said that in reverse. People coming from Google are spending more time than the referral source. So the referral source could be David's marketing campaign for the event that we're having today, and you clicked on my website, that's a referral. Or it could be my own email campaign, which I know I've not sent any email campaigns in like the last 6 months. So I know that those referrals are coming from elsewhere, and they're spending about 8 seconds on my website. Okay, and they generated 28 event counts. That means those people did do something. Those 6 folks poked around my website. Now, the 33 people that came from Google, 29 of them were heavily engaged, and they spent 42 seconds. Now, what this tells me is that it's probably what I like to call a navigation search, and Google calls it a navigation search. So essentially, they went to Google, they either typed in my name, or they typed in EdgeSpace Marketing, went to my website, and then they were poking around, whether it's the portfolio, whether it's the homepage or webinars, or maybe they're looking for the next event that's happening because they missed the last class. That's all possible. When we get into the other reports, we can make a little deeper inference, but this is giving me kind of a starting point for people are coming, where are they coming from, and what are they doing, sort of, like in sense of they're sticking around. So this is where I'm going to confuse you. Now we have a traffic acquisition report. We just had users acquisition report. It looks the same. What is the difference between the traffic acquisition report and the user acquisition report? The traffic acquisition report is all traffic to your website. The user acquisition report is only new users. So in the old way of doing Google Analytics, we kind of had them all stuck together and we couldn't tell who are returning users versus who are new users. It's very important to understand where returning traffic are coming from, because again, the term is sticky clients. They've come back. So the question now, we have to figure out why they're coming back, which is a good thing when we want to keep them coming back. So same thing like before, you're going to click the traffic acquisition report and looky-loo, it looks exactly the same again. So now you're going, what's the difference? But now we're looking at these numbers and we're like, okay, now I have 180 users. So the last report said 177. Now this one says 180. So I had 3 new users, or excuse me, there are 3 returning users in the whole mix, which is fine. Those are 3 people that maybe you came to class last week and you were checking me out, or maybe it was earlier in the month and you were trying to figure out, I want to come to class, I'm not sure, let me look again. That could have happened, right? This is where you can kind of infer what's been going on that could make people either come back or not come back. The goal is we want them to come back. Every time somebody comes back to your website is a good thing. And here you now see a different kind, the metrics are laid out slightly differently, because right next to it, I now have engaged sessions and the average engagement per session. So now the numbers are slightly different and I have 66 engaged sessions still, but the average engagement time shifted to 18 seconds because maybe returning users don't want to spend as much time because they know what they're looking for. And this is where we can get into other reports and figure out which pages they're going to instead, right? That's when we get into advanced Google Analytics. But this is giving us some insights in terms of who's coming, where they're coming from. And so what I always say is maybe pick one of the two. Instead of looking at the user report and the traffic report and trying to figure out what's happening, pick the one that you understand the best and go with that, but just understand the difference. So if you only want to look at the new users, go to that report. I personally prefer the traffic acquisition report because I want to know who the returning users are. I want to know when they're coming back, what are they doing, and how do the numbers look different than if they didn't. But that's me and my goals. The question is really you and your goals and what you're looking for. We also now have a little further breakdown in events per session. Again, it's a percentage, not really helping me. There's a column to the right that says has a rate on it. These numbers don't tell me much. Whereas on the user acquisition report, I had a better event count than on the traffic acquisition report. So this is where you kind of have to jump back and forth and figure out what you're looking for, right? All right. So now let's talk a little bit about where people are coming from. And I apologize, I didn't give this a title. This is basically which pages and screens get the most views. So now we've known that we have all these users coming to our website. We know that they're returning sometimes. We know they're doing things on our website. We don't know where they're going. This is where the traffic report tells us, or this is, they actually changed the name, but it's the page views report, which pages has the most views. So if you click on the view pages and screens, same lower right corner like you did with the other reports, you now have this. pages and screens. And we now have, again, a line graph and a bar graph that are essentially the same number breakdowns. And then we have the list of all the pages that they went to. You can even see the SEO titles for each of those pages. So in this case, it says Edge Space Marketing, straight line, digital marketing, straight line, small businesses and nonprofits. That's the SEO title of the page. So that's what, like, if somebody Googled Edge Space Marketing, that is what should show up in the search results as the title of the page. That's what I've deliberately put in. If you've not filled in anything beyond the page name, it's going to just say the page names. These, for those of you who are unfamiliar, the page title is an important space for your search engine optimization. You'll notice that it has a bunch of different things. Sometimes it says the business name on some pages. In other cases, I put keywords for what I want people to search for or find me for. Here is where we're looking at engagement. We're looking at the average engagement time and the event count per page. This is super helpful so that you can understand where people are spending their time on your website. Now, I know this is really tiny. On your screen, it's going to be bigger when you go into your reports, but essentially, let's look at the first row. Or at the top of the house, we have 21 seconds, as we know, is the average time people are spending on my website for the 274 users in this report. And then we have an 811 event count, but we don't know where and what pages that's for. If you go to the line beneath it for row 1 that says Edge Space Marketing, digital marketing, small businesses and nonprofit, I know that's my home page. This is where it gets slightly tricky because it's telling you the page title as opposed to the link to the page. In that drop down, you should be able to change it to, and I apologize, I didn't think to put an arrow in there, but it is in the middle of the screen, right under the squiggly lines. It says page title and screen class. If you click that drop down, you should be able to switch it to the actual links for the pages if that's easier for you to follow which pages they're on. So if we're looking at Edge Space Marketing, digital marketing, row 1, numbered row 1, I had 167 views that they had 10 seconds as the average engagement time. So remember I told you the average attention span is 8 seconds. People spent 10 seconds on my site after it finished loading. And then they had 551 event counts. That means that they were scrolling down the page. They may have clicked another button to go to another page, but they didn't just leave. So while that 10 seconds may seem like, oh my God, that's such a small number, 551 things happened in that 10 seconds on average, right? And that's the way you want to interpret these metrics. Then I see on my contact us page, they're spending about 30 seconds and the event count is 58. Now, what that tells me, there's a couple of scrolls in there because I have a header, so they probably have to scroll down. They've either 30 seconds tells me they're filling out forms. They're copying down my contact information. Maybe they're writing it down. Maybe they're copying it to go to their email because a lot of my clientele aren't comfortable with just clicking it and it opens the email app. Or maybe they're writing the phone number down to call me. They could be then looking at my social. Any number of things could be happening, but they're spending 30 seconds and 58% of the time they did things. Now, I know on average, if I were to think about in the last 1 month, did I get 57 forms plus emails plus phone calls? No. Probably got about 20 though. So if I eliminate those 20, that leaves 34 page scrolls and maybe like copying information and such. But again, 30 seconds is a pretty long time to be spending on the page, which means they're doing more than just sitting there and clicking away. If I go even further, and let's jump down to row 4, which says the portfolio. For me, that is a very important page on my website because the portfolios are the examples of all the websites I've built or a subset for the last 6 years. If people are looking at my portfolio, then I know that I'm getting more qualified web builds or clients are saying, okay, these are features and functionality. That's the important conversion point for me. When I see people going to contact us, then about us, then portfolio, I'm content. What I do know is services is number 5. I do know that in the last 1 month, 2 people have told me, do you even do SEO? I couldn't see it on your website. I know I have a design issue and I need to go redesign my website now because I want to see services bump up, because if people are not looking at my services and telling me they don't know if I do SEO, I don't know how many clients I've lost along the way. Of those 274 views from that and 180 users, maybe I lost 50 because I didn't make it clear enough what I do. Right? This is how I'm inferring what's happening based on this report. Again, it's all about how you interpret the data. There's always going to be a different stroke to it, but that's just kind of an idea of how I'm looking at this data and saying, okay, I know I have an issue. So here's where we get into the AI powered insights. When you're logged into your Google Analytics, there is going to be a panel on the right side that says insights. And here you can see that it's telling you which questions to ask. And these right now are pre-built. You can't quite type in and ask Google just yet. With Google Bard and ChatGPT, who knows what's going to come in the next 6 months? It's moving very fast. But as of today, this is a report. It is using machine learning to analyze your data and identify patterns and trends. And the pre-built reports are supposed to tell you where there's changes in your user behavior, increases in traffic, decreases in traffic, and conversion rates. What it's trying to do is save you the time of doing what I just did and look at all the reports and saying, okay, what does this actually mean? It's trying to tell you. So if you're somebody who just, everything I just said went way over your head, totally fine. Use the insights and let Google tell you what it means. So it says here, how many users did I have in the last week? You don't have to then go dig into the report to see it. I'm, I guess this is where they say old fashioned techie. I like to look at my reports. I don't trust Google to tell me what I want to see the reports. I want to see the raw data, but that's just because of my expertise and my background. And so you may just want to skip all of that and go right to the AI powered insights, which are pretty self-explanatory. It even tells you what days do I get the most users? What are my top events by user? That's really important because then you can get a sense of what are people actually doing. You're not guessing like I just did. So maybe I should look at that instead of saying, all right, I don't know what they did when they got to my homepage. It's telling you. And so it also said it's supposed to do automated alerts to notify you when it detects a significant change in your data. I have not yet received any such reports, so I don't know if we have to turn it on. I've looked into it and I haven't really seen any details. I know like Google tends to email you regular things from the Search Console, but I haven't seen anything yet from Google Analytics saying like, hey, we noticed this big change, you should do something about it. So if you get those, cool, love to see them, but I haven't personally gotten any yet. So I don't know what they look like and what they're really gonna do for you. Now, hopefully I've not put everybody to sleep and I've not confused you all to death, but we've got a few more questions or time for some questions. All right, I'll stop sharing, see if there's anybody has any questions. Anyone talking on mute?
Mhm.
All right, I don't think so. David, Lori, any questions from you? Thoughts?
David, you're on mute.
First of all, we are planning to have an in-person meeting. If there's enough interest, we're planning on having an in-person meeting in 2 weeks' time, probably in Stamford, place to be decided. So we can both get together and then ask Nalini any questions that have emerged in the interim. So that's something I'll be sending out the details as soon as we've got a place lined up and as soon as we get a sense of how many people. And we'll go ahead as soon as we have a sense of a decent number of people who are interested.
Yeah, stay tuned on our Facebook page, Cultural Alliance of Fairfield County, and Instagram at Cultural FC, as in Fairfield County. And we'll be posting the location and all there as well.
I have a quick question if it's not too late.
No.
What is user stickiness? So under engagement overview, down at the bottom, what is that? Do you have any idea what that means?
Yeah, stickiness is a marketing term that basically means they came back. So
Okay.
like an example would be in banking. They want you to set up all your automated payments through their credit card or their portal and this way, if your credit card gets compromised, chances of you trying to move all your stuff over is a pain in the butt. So you're going to stick around. And so what they're looking at is user stickiness. That's what I was talking about, that returning user. They like to see that more users coming. That means they're sticky.
Okay.
Mhm.
And I've not seen that metric. See, that's not on my report. I've not seen stickiness on my report.
Mhm.
That's sticky.
Go ahead, Jane.
I had a question. So I'm an early adopter of Google Analytics. I started a blog in 2007. And the second that Google Analytics was available, I installed it. It was the old Google, was it Blogster? And I used to obsessively check Google Analytics, like once every 3 days or 4 days. And I was always so interested in what countries people were coming from and all the other things. And I mean, honestly, now with it in the business, I'm not looking at it as often. Do you have a recommended time period for how often we should be looking at our Google Analytics? Once a month, once a week, once a quarter, once a day?
Well, I would say once a day, weekly, it can be overkill. Like you said, it's easy to fall down the rabbit hole and obsess over the little minutia. Oh, they spent 5 seconds left. Like I would say use it as a measure, maybe once a month, once a quarter. It always boils down to your business. If for like, for example, I had somebody call me today, they have no sales in the last 1 month. They have no idea what went wrong on their website. So that's when I'm going to dig into the analytics and see what started happening, what changed. When did the users drop off? Did you make a change 3 weeks ago? And that's when the users dropped off. So sometimes it's more about incidentals. If something happened and you want to know, definitely dig into the analytics. But in terms of measuring it, maybe quarterly, monthly, it's really about how you need to drive it. Right. Like I said, I get enough phone calls and referrals that I'm comfortable leaving mine the way it is. And I check mine when I go to prep these reports for class, to be very honest. I don't think I look at my reports more than once a year unless I'm doing it for a class. I spend more time in the Search Console because I do more search engine optimization stuff. We can do another session on that one. That's a whole nother beast. But the Search Console will tell you what they're typing in to get there. So that's more dependent on if you depend on your traffic coming from Google as opposed to what people are doing on your website. As nonprofits, you guys definitely need to know what's happening if you're not getting the donations you want or the signups and those kind of things.
Right. One thing I have found it really useful for is sometimes you'll get, if you look at it, you'll see a huge spike all of a sudden, like an unusual spike. And if you go back and look and see where the traffic is coming from, maybe you were mentioned in an online news article that you weren't aware of or something like that. And I use that as an opportunity to go and thank that person and start a relationship with them. So
absolutely. Yes. That's a great rule of thumb for everyone on the call for nonprofits. Relationship building, that's called backlinking in the SEO world, and like making sure you have those relations so you can get mentioned. The other time to, when a good time to look at it is 1 week after you sent out a newsletter or you did an email campaign or a social media campaign. That'll give you a sense of, like, for example, let's say I'm going to use David as an example. 2 weeks ago, he sent out an email saying we have this class coming up. Then a day later, he posted it on social media. 1 week later, if I were to look at my reports and see that there was this spike, and then I'm like, where did that come from? And then I'm looking at the referral traffic is coming from LinkedIn maybe, or it's coming from email. And I'm like, well, I know I didn't send any MailChimp emails. Then I know in my head, it came from David's campaign because I know no one else is technically running campaigns for my classes right now. And so it does give you some insights in terms of what's working. So again, if you ran an email and then you didn't get too many clicks on it, but then you got a lot of directs at the same time, it's quite possible that they just went directly to your your website, instead of clicking it from your email. So you can check those type of spikes too. That's a great insight, Jane.
thank you. Thanks for all your help.
You're welcome. Thank you, Laura. Go ahead, Laura.
We have sort of, as you all probably know, we send out a lot of email. So I'm wondering, is there anything you can recommend to decipher when, perhaps we have so much going on? How do we decipher where the spikes might be coming from?
So in your case, you might have to bump up again. If you're using MailChimp, you can see per campaign which buttons, and like, I love that MailChimp actually tells you, it gives you a heat map. It'll tell you where people click. So if you can see that you had 47 clicks from this newsletter today, you should see that some type of correlation-ish, like to some degree, right? Because it's going to be combined with other, let's say you sent out 2 newsletters, or maybe they're 2 days apart, but everybody clicked on the same day. It may skew your numbers sort of. So this is where we talk about, you'd have to put your Google Analytics on one side and your MailChimp Analytics on another, and start to look at, can we see the correlation between the two? Sometimes it's harder to see, especially if it's small, but if it's a really big spike, you should be able to see which MailChimp drove it, or it's a combination of MailChimps that drove it.
We have Get Response, but it's
Same thing.
Pretty good with reports as well.
Yeah, it's not whichever. Most of the email platforms have very good reporting, telling you when the last click was and where they clicked, usually. Right. Because, and that goes back to the whole privacy concern, because that's their own stuff. They can get into that granular of a detail. Google Analytics will never be able to get that level because of privacy concerns.
Right.
I think we've got time for 1 or 2 more questions. Go ahead, Colleen.
Hi, I think my question is with regards to trying not to look far beyond where the headlights are heading right now, but when we're talking a little bit about this platform sunsetting in July, do you know, just from your point of view and your expertise, how we can anticipate to be prepared for the next platform?
Well, the next platform's already live right now. This is what I was showing you, the G4. So I would say convert now and then compare your reports. So for example, if you're used to looking at the Universal Analytics, both are there, then you can, like, for example, when I'm looked at the Universal Analytics, I'm used to seeing, okay, I know I had 140 sessions generated, 140 users generated 156 sessions. But then when I bump up the same time frame for the Google Analytics, what I tend to do is screen print one or have it on one screen, bring up the other one, and then do a comparison to make sure I understand these were my apples, these are my oranges. How do I now know where to look? So that's the best recommended. You've got 2 months to do that. And from what I understand, you will still have it historically, but the difference is that you can now run them for the same time frame at this moment. So you can really see where you're trying to, like, where you were looking before and where the numbers are now.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, people are leaving. Before we end, I've got a quick poll for people to fill out, please. Just 2 questions. And you'll be getting the recording link and the slides and Nalini's email address again.
Yeah.
And I'm sure she's happy to answer any specific questions. So I'm launching the poll now. So please, everybody, just have a look and answer the quick little questions.
And while you're doing that, just a little plug for our ACE Awards breakfast, June 21st. We just announced our awardees, and we hope we get to see you in person either there or at the next workshop that's live and in person in Stamford, or both.
Thank you, everyone. This was great.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you all for coming and
Thank
bearing with
you.
me.
Thanks so much.
Thank
You're
you very
welcome.
much.
Good luck.
Very
Happy Google
informative.
Analyticsing.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, guys.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having it. This was great.
Good.
Yeah,
No,
looking forward to the in-person one.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to hop off and head off to my
Yeah.
next call, but I'm going to send you guys the PDFs now.
great.
Great.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Nalini.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. So Sam, I've got a poll that is waiting your response. You're on mute. Sam, you're on mute. I can't hear you.
There we go. Sorry,
There
David. I had to skip out. We had a couple of interventions that I couldn't get away from. So
Sure, sure.
can I just skip the poll? Since I really wasn't able to attend other than the first couple of minutes.
Oh, really? That much? I thought you were.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, unfortunately, I had
All right.
to
Well, I
miss it.
can send you I'll send you the recording link and the slides. So you
Oh,
can,
that'd be wonderful if you can do that.
and then we'll have an in-person session in a couple of weeks.
Okay. That's
Right.
more of a like a free-for-all
Yeah,
Q&A, that
Yeah.
one?
yeah.
Okay, well, let me see if I can run through the slides and just sort of get a handle on that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not our analytics administrator, but I'm wanted to become sort of familiar with what the analytics can
And there's a
show.
lot, there's a lot you can do just by, clicking in and logging in. I mean, just making sure, as she said, that, you're on the right account and you
Yeah.
can actually get the information. But,
Okay.
yeah, okay. Well, thanks for joining.
Well-
Sorry you had an event.
Yeah, me too, but no, that's
All right, great.
life gets in the way sometimes.
Oh, yeah,
Take care.
indeed. Bye.